Okay, after you saw your design, I do want you guys to spend some time filing with some of these files to make sure that abrasive boards and those work. So this piece of copper, which is a piece of 18 gauge sheet metal copper, has been filed and it's been cleaned, and then I try not to touch it as much as possible after it's been cleaned because there's oils on your hand that might prevent the stuff that we're going to put on it from sticking. Okay, the step after that, like I said, if you do want a hole in this, if it's going to be a necklace or earrings, you have to drill a hole now. You can't drill a hole after any of this stuff has been put on. Okay, but this one's going to be a pin, so I don't need a hole. Okay, the next thing we're going to be using is, after we clean it, we're going to use Amacoat Scalex. So this prevents fire scale when you put it in the enameling kiln. So you want a good amount, and you just want to dab it on the front side. This is the side that our Cloisonne work is going to go on, so this is the side that my silver bezel will go on, and this is the side that my enamel work will go on. So this is the side with the design. You want to try not to make sure to get any like on the sides or underneath, so that's why I'm brushing it this way. Just to the very edge, but not on the edge and also not under the edge. Okay. Now this takes a while to dry. You can either blow dry it with a cool blow dryer or just set it to the side and let it dry. I'm going to switch over to this one, which is dry, so you can see what it looks like when it's dry. It's a little bit chalkier. So again, this protects this front side. Now on a tripod, we're going to flip it over to the back side. Be careful just to grab it by the sides, not like that. So on the back side, you want to put something on there. We're just going to put hash, which is just, it's really just leftover stuff, okay? We're going to use the sifter and the tripod. And sift on a nice even layer. Make sure that the paper is underneath, so you're catching any extra. And that's a pretty good layer. That should do. Now, always after you're done sifting a color on, we put the extra back in here. And then, Pedro, if you want to bring this computer over. I'm going to keep it on the trivet and put it on that. This enameling kiln, as you can see, is 1,644 degrees. So I'm just going to open it up. And usually I just look through the window as well as reading this temperature. Now this melts at about 1,470 degrees. But since I opened the door, it's dropping, so I'm going to let it rise back up to 1,470 degrees and watch it. When this gloss is over in the window, that's when I'm going to take it out. Can you see in the window there? Good. Okay, after this comes out, you're going to let it cool. I put one color in the back. See, there's Scalex in the front. It's already popped off quite a bit. So just go ahead and flake the rest of it off. It should just peel off like that. Now before I put the bezel in the front, I'm going to go ahead and pickle this. There's the pickle pot. And that will clean it. Leave it in there for 5 minutes. So here's my design, and this is where I'm going to put pieces of silver bezel. You can see the back side's already done. This is the silver bezel that we're working with. It is very expensive and very tiny. So make sure that you keep track of all your pieces. So basically I'm going to make kind of a 3D coloring book with this. So I'm going to try to estimate while overestimating, because it's better to cut a little bit too much than not enough. And I'm going to do one shape at a time. So for this first part of my shamrock, just this top one, I think I need about this much. Before you actually place it in that shape, you have to work harden it with a burnisher. Okay, because this silver bezel is really, really flimsy. It's almost like string. Okay, but if you work harden it, which means you can do it like this, okay, just kind of glide it against your hand and do that. So it's just like the same thing as if you hit a piece of copper with a hammer a lot, it gets really stiff and it doesn't want to bend anymore. And that's what we're doing to this. Okay. So just do that a couple times, and you'll notice after you do that that it's harder to bend. That way, when you put it in the shape you want it, it's not going to bend again. So I've done that side, this side. And this is the teeny tiny frustrating work. This is probably the most frustrating and requires most patience part of your job. So now if you have fingernails, this is helpful, but also use some of these for some tiny work. And it's going to require a little bit of bending, a little bit of trying, a little bit more bending, a little bit of I'm almost there but can't quite get it type of feel. Okay, so that's pretty good. Go ahead and cut that. This little piece of extra silver bezel that was extra and I didn't need, I have a little container in this box for extra silver bezel. Like, I know that's small, but somebody else could probably use it. And like I said, this stuff is expensive, so please save that. Don't throw it away. The very important part about making your bezel, and this is frustrating too, is it has to close. See how this is not quite closed. And if it's not quite closed and you put it on there and then fill it with like just this color on the inside and this color on the outside, they're going to run together because they become liquid in the kiln. So it has to close. So that's why you need to keep doing a little bit more bending until it does. So that closes. All right. This little stuff is glue stick adhesive. I used to have to try to place them on there and then hold them steady while I put it in the kiln and not drop it, and I've dropped a few. But since this year I've bought some of this. So what you do when you have it in your perfect shape is you're going to grab your silver bezel by the tweezers, and you just want to put a little bit of glue on the bottom. So I'm not submerging it in there. Yeah, if you use too much, it will catch on fire. Look how much I'm using. Not that. Yes, not that much. You really don't need that much. And then you place it on there. Now I've got one piece of bezel in the place that I want it. So I'm going to cut 1, 2, 3 more pieces of silver bezel and burnish them to harden them and bend them till they. All right, now that I have all my silver bezel pieces glued on there with the glue stick, I put it on a trivet with paper underneath. This is just transparent enamel. Take a little bit, and I want to sift it on until I get the transparent bezel transparent enamel about halfway up the bezel wall. And when this is fired, it will get the bezel to stick onto there permanently. Always remember to take this extra and put it back into the container. Okay, now that we've got our bezel permanently on there with the transparent enamel, this is what it looks like. And what I'm going to do is pick some colors that I want to fill in my cloisonne. I've chosen these 2 colors. So I'm going to add these colors to a cup. That's plenty. You want to mix distilled water with it, not tap water. Yep. Swirl it like this so it all gets mixed around, and then we need to let it settle. Now, we need to keep track of what color is in here because there are so many different colors of green enamel. So I should have done this before, but this is 1360 jungle green. I'm going to write that down. In here, I'm going to put 503 turquoise robinette. Put that in here. And I'm going to mix some distilled water with it.
I like that.
I've got this extra container here where I'm dumping the extra distilled water. So once it's settled and the water's on the top, you're going to just dump this in here. We're dumping out the water. Maybe a little bit of enamel, but mostly just water, so it looks like that. It's a nice paste. But keep this because once it's settled, you can get the water out of the top. Same thing with this. Once most of it's settled to the bottom, we're going to dump out just the water, leaving this nice paste. We're going to start putting this enamel in here.
Oh, okay.
Just drop it in there like that. Just trying not to get it on top of the bezel, just get it inside of the bezel. And you want to try to fill it to the top of the bezel, but when you fire it, it's all going to, the water's going to evaporate and it'll settle down quite a bit. So you've got to do this a couple times. Okay, this one little green area is tiny.
Oh no.
Now I'm going to clean this up, and I got a little bit of green outside of there, so I do want to scrape that off and remove it. I'm going to create a guide for myself, and remember that I put 1360 jungle green here. So if I come back and forget what I put there, now I have this guide. Okay, now I've got my robin's egg blue. So I'm just going to drop this everywhere around it. Okay, so now this is ready for the kiln. I've got my Cloisonne project on a trivet, on a screen, and you're going to want to use this tool. Open up the kiln, slide it into there, and gently close the door. You want to get this to about 1,470 degrees, but you do need to watch in the window because you'll be able to see it melt and smooth over. After your cloisonne is fired and the enamel is filled up to the top of the bezel wall, you're going to want to do some filing. So I've put in the video the best tool to use, but I don't have one of those yet. So this is just 220 grit wet dry emery paper. You are going to want to do it under the sink with this wet, because you definitely do not want to be breathing any of this dust that comes off. So while it's wet, you just want to do a little bit of sanding with the block. And what this will do is it will file down a little bit of the bezel, it will file down some of the enamel, so what you're hoping for is just a nice smooth dome. So just keep sanding until that happens. Be sure to do any edges that you see also. Now if you really do some grinding with that block, you'll get a little bit of a frosty look on your enamel. And so all you have to do to get rid of that frosty look and make it shiny again is just fire it again. But then the last time that you fire it, it will be just nice and domed. It should be smooth and even. You should not actually be able to feel your bezel. All this should be at the same level. And then you're done.